Hi, I'm Chad with Move Forward Guitar. This is lesson number 2 from our short series on how to memorize all the notes on your fretboard. So in the first lesson in this series, I showed you what octave shapes to memorize, and you can go back and watch that lesson if you haven't by clicking the link on the screen. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to use those octave shapes to find one note up and down the whole fretboard. So I'm going to show you how to find one F note up and down the whole fretboard. So starting all the way down here, and then I'll go as high as I can reach on this guitar. Might be different on your guitar. You might not be able to reach as far depending on what type of guitar you're playing. And don't worry too much if you're saying that you don't even know any notes on the fretboard besides the open strings. You should know the open strings because when you're starting out, you should learn those right away because that's how you get your guitar in tune. And it's just really important for everything you do on guitar. So if you don't know the open strings, go back and learn those. I have a lesson on that as well. But if you know the open strings but don't really know any of the other notes on the fretboard, don't worry about that right now. First, I'm going to show you why I showed you these octave shapes to begin with and how to put them in use. And you can start practicing with an F note. And then in later lessons, I'm going to show you how to actually break your fretboard down and memorize notes and use these octave shapes to find all the notes on the fretboard. So we're going to start with an F, and we're going to go on the first string, first fret. That's an F note. And I'm starting with this note just because it starts in the first fret, and I can go up covering the whole fretboard using these octave shapes I showed. That's why I'm starting with F, because it starts so low on the neck. So what we're going to do, you're going to start on the first string, hit that F note. That's the first note you're starting with. And then, since you're on this first string, we're going to use the octave shape that was like this. The one that went from the first string to the sixth string in the same fret. So that tells you right away that you have an F note on the first string. You also have one in the same fret on the sixth string. And you should already know that because if you know your open strings, you know that the lowest string and the high string are both E's. So we go here from the F on the high string to the F on the low string with this octave shape. Next thing we're going to do is start on the last note that we went from. So we started on this high F, we went to this F on the low string, so now we're on this note. So we're going from this F, and since we're on the sixth string, it's this octave shape. You should know that from the last lesson. The one that went up 2 frets and down towards the floor 2 strings. So that tells us from here to here is another F. Next thing we're going to do is put our first finger where our third finger is and start on that last F note that we just found. And we're going to use this octave shape, which you should know, the one that starts on the fourth string, which goes up 3 frets and down towards the floor 2 strings. You should know that by watching the last lesson. And now we know that we have an F note here, which is under my fourth finger. So now I put my first finger where my fourth finger is and hit that last F note that we found. And then we're going to use this octave shape to find the next F note, which was going up 2 frets and then up towards the ceiling 1, 2, 3 strings. And you should know that from the last lesson. So now we found another F right here. So by using this octave shape, we found an F here. So now I'm going to put my first finger where my third finger is on that F note that we just found. And then we're going to use this octave shape to find the next one, which is starting on the 5th string. We know again that's the same as the octave shape that started on the 6th string. We go up 2 frets, down towards the floor 2 strings. Now we have another F note here. We found that by using this octave shape. Now we're going to put our first finger where our third finger is again and find the next F, which is using this octave shape, which is the same as the one that started on the 4th string. The one that starts on the 3rd string is the same, where we go up 3 frets and down towards the floor 2 strings. Now we know we have an F note right here. And now we're just going to repeat everything because once you get past the 12th fret, everything just repeats. So everything past the 12th fret is the exact same as everything down here up to the 12th fret. Except you don't you don't have as many frets as this covers. On my guitar, I get up to a D note, which would end right here. So my guitar right here that I'm showing down here is the same as right here. It's just all of this is an octave higher than all the information down here. So that's one thing, if you don't realize, your fretboard just repeats itself once you get past the 12th fret. And everything in the 12th fret is the exact same as the open strings, one octave higher. So open E, E, one octave higher. Open A, one octave higher, and so on. So now that we know we have an F note right here, we're doing the exact same thing that we did when we were down here, because this F note is just one octave higher than this. This F note up here is one octave higher than the one down here, and everything just repeats itself. So we went from here to the 6th string, we're going to do the exact same thing. Now we're on the 6th string, we use this octave shape just like we did down there. Now we're on the 4th string, we use this octave shape like we did down there. Now we're on the 2nd string, we use the octave shape that we did down there. I have to kind of change my fingers. And then I have one more on my guitar that I can reach. Now I'm on the 5th string, we have the same octave shape that we used down there. And that's the highest F note that I can reach on my guitar. So that's how you would use the octave shapes to find one note up and down the whole fretboard. You start with what we're doing here is an F, so we're going to go to the first F note that we can reach that's closest to the nut on our guitar, which for F is right here. First one closest to the nut that's on the highest string. So that's on the 1st string, 1st fret for F. And then we just follow those octave shapes all the way up. And that's how you can find one note up and down the whole fretboard. So that's a good place to start. Even if you don't know any other notes besides the F that I just showed you, if you don't know these other notes farther up the neck, just start on F and do what I just did. Go from the highest F to the lowest F down here, and then follow these octave shapes all the way up to as high as you can reach on your guitar. It might be different than what I could reach on mine, especially if you have an acoustic, it will be different. And like I said, in the next lessons, we're going to get into how to do it with the other notes and how this information is going to help you if you're, say, right here and wondering, well, what is this note? You're not going to go all the way down and work your way back up to find it. You're going to reverse your octave shapes to find notes that are in a more difficult spot on the neck when they end up somewhere in here. And I'll explain how to do all that and other tips and tricks and exercises you can use to really memorize the notes on your fretboard. But starting with this that I just did with F and using those octave shapes and being able to visualize them from the strings that you're starting on is really important to find one note up and down the neck. And like I said, we'll do it with other notes in the next lessons. But this is a good way to really get these octave shapes down and understand how they work to find one note. And if you need a refresher about the octave shapes, go back to the last lesson like I mentioned, and that's going to tell you what shape to use depending on what string you're starting on. So you might have to watch that a few times to really get it in your mind, or print out the download, and that'll really help you to quickly be able to reference it. But that's your next step. Find the F note on the high string like I showed you, and just go through all the octave shapes to get as high as you can reach on your guitar. And then move on to the next lessons, and I'll show you how to take this further. And be sure to subscribe because we add at least one new lesson every day.